Hey there, I'm Rachel Ehring, and you're listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. Get inspired as we discuss creative resources, trends in piano pedagogy, ways to grow your income and streamline your studio, and new ways to engage your students each week. If you are a teacher who wants to go beyond the method books to create an innovative studio that fosters lifelong music makers, you've come to the right place. Hello, piano teacher friends. I am so glad that you are joining me here today. We're actually covering two topics with my guest. As I was prepping for this interview with Juan, I came across one of his blog posts that I wanted to talk to him about because I think it's a topic that is interesting to a lot of piano teachers, and that is forehand and ensemble repertoire. So we're going to spend some time talking about the benefits of teaching forehand pieces, and we're going to highlight a couple of pieces that we both love in the repertoire. And then Juan is going to share about his course called Piano Patterns in Harmony, which is all about using patterns to teach improvisation. So here's a little bit about Juan. Juan Cabeza is a pianist, pedagogue, and composer. He teaches private and group piano students at his studio in Madrid, where he specializes in students in the elementary and intermediate stages of study. As a result of his research in piano pedagogy, Juan created a blog where he expresses his ideas about teaching and learning piano, provides teaching resources, and suggests interesting piano repertoire. Juan is the author of Piano Train Trips, Miniatures, and the Two Diversions books published by Piano Safari. He has translated into Spanish the Piano Safari method and Create First by Forrest Kinney. He has also created the online improvisation course, Piano Patterns in Harmony, which has been recently nominated for the Art of Piano Education Awards 2025. Here's my interview with Juan. Welcome to the show, Juan. I'm so happy to have you here today, and I'm excited to hear what you have to share with us. Could you start by introducing yourself and tell us just a little bit about your musical background?
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me to the podcast, Rachel. It's an honor for me because I've been a long-time listener of Tim's podcast and your podcast. So for me, it's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Juan Cabeza, and I am a piano teacher and composer from Madrid, Spain. I teach individual and group lessons in my piano studio. I started playing the piano relatively late when I was 11 or 12 years old. And I received, I think, as the most of pianists nowadays, a traditional education with its good things and its not so good things. And an education that prepared me to play Beethoven sonatas or Chopin ballads very well, but that forgot many aspects that I now see as fundamental, such as ear training or work on creativity, improvisation, composition, arranging folk songs, and this kind of work. I think everyone who listens to this episode understands this type of education, which is totally focused on scores and perfect performance, which is good, but it leaves some gaps in the training of a person who wants music to be part of their life. So I don't want to be misunderstood. I had good teachers who helped me a lot, but knowing what I know now, I would have looked for a more holistic teaching. In my first years as a teacher, I used with my students the teaching methods that I have received when I was a student. I think this is the normal thing when you start teaching. In Spain, when I started teaching 25 years ago, more or less, there wasn't much information about other ways of teaching. So I taught the way I had been taught without considering much more. So it wasn't until I started working at a very prestigious school of music here in Madrid, where I began to rethink my teaching methods. Because the moment I started to reconsider my entire training was when I started teaching in groups of 5, 6, 7 children who were able to play very well Bach inventions or Diabelli sonatinas or repertoire like that, but with whom I had a hard time doing group activities. So it was difficult for students to play anything other than what was written on sheet music. Even if they read a score, I had to give it to them weeks in advance so they could make music with it. I believe that musical education should prepare you to play music through a score, but also to be able to make music in different ways. If you want music to be part of your students' lives, you have to train them so that they can make music in various contexts. We must teach students to play music by ear or improvisation or creating piano arrangements, or we have to teach them how to compose from the very beginning, to learn pieces by rote or by reading, to accompany themselves, singing themselves, or accompany other musicians, other friends. A lot of singing, movement, body percussion. And I began to think that perhaps this way of teaching in which students could correctly play the music written on a score, but couldn't do the simplest thing immediately, might have many or some gaps. I began to realize that the way I was taught might not be the best way to teach at least I didn't want to teach my students in this way. So I started looking for other ways to teach, studying different piano methods and music methods, looking for new repertoire, and I started becoming the teacher and the musician that I am nowadays, that I am today. At that point, there were two moments that made a big impact on me. These two crucial points were discovering the piano safari method and the work of Forrest Kinney. So about piano safari, in addition to the way the method works with the techniques, exercises, and the theoretical content, that is, I found it perfectly sequenced. What really changed everything for me was the combination of teaching by rote with interval reading and the use of pieces based on patterns. These two things completely blew my mind and completely changed my way of teaching. From there, I started looking for patterns everywhere, and that's when I discovered Forrest Kinney's books and his teaching philosophy based on creativity. I love the work of Forrest Kinney, and you don't need to have much knowledge to create music. Forrest thought that he believed that you should create to learn, not learn to create. In fact, creating and improvising is the best way to learn. If you want, for example, to teach a perfect fifth, what better way to learn what they are than to improvise or create a piece using fifths? Or if you want to explain what the Mixolydian mode is, the best way is to create something with this scale, or to improvise something, to compose something with the Mixolydian scale. And then you can give them an explanation, but after the students have experienced it with this Mixolydian scale, you can explain them the theoretical explanation. Piano Safari and the idea of Forrest Kinney for arts in music, performance, improvisation, composition, and arrangements. This is what I always have in mind when I am teaching my students nowadays. Another thing important in this way, I started to change my teaching was knowing the ideas of Edwin Gordon's, the MLT. I am not an MLT teacher yet, but I've learned a lot MLT ideas and reading books and watching all the materials are out there on the internet about MLT. And there are a lot of MLT teachers that I followed and whose work I admire and with whom I learn so much. There is an incredible, nice community of MLT teachers that I love, and I learned so much with all of them. So the teacher I am now is a mix of all of these ideas I have told you, and with other influences such I love Paul Harris' simultaneous learning books. I love those books. And also the ideas from Edgar Willems or also have influenced me a lot the new repertoire such Gillock, Vandal, Chrissy Ricker, and many others, and a lot of other resources that I continue studying. So when I started to discover these new methods, ideas and new repertoire and all these things I am talking about, I also started writing a blog in which I tell and share these ideas and resources. The blog is called megustaelpiano.com, which means I love the piano. And after this change, I began to compose pieces to work in my piano group lessons at first. These were the stations of piano train trips and the diversions. I started teaching them in my group lessons, and at the beginning, I started with my group lessons with these pieces. But because they worked so well, I started to working on them in my individual lessons too. And because I love Catherine and Julie Hag, Catherine Fisher, I sent to them because they influenced me a lot with their method. So I sent to them my first book, Piano Train Trips, as a thank you gift because I was so inspired by them. So I wanted to give them my book. So my surprise was that they liked them so much that they wanted to publish my first book and my diversions books. So I was so surprised that when I received this email in which they told me that they wanted to publish my book, that I showed this email to my wife. So this is a little or a long summary of how I became the teacher I am today.
Thank you for sharing that. And it sounds like your journey started very similar to mine. And I know Tim, started his podcast to help teachers who started in the very traditional lessons and wanted to teach differently to their students. So it's really interesting to hear your story. And that's so exciting that your pieces are now published by Piano Safari. Congratulations on that. Now, you mentioned your blog, and I actually, as I was preparing for this, I was reading some of your blog articles, and there was one that stood out to me because I think piano teachers I think they're interested in this topic of four-hand piano and how to incorporate more four-hand, six-hand, whatever, ensemble pieces into lessons. So we're going to talk a little about that. And then at the end, we're going to talk about the course that you've created as well. So let's start with four-hand repertoire. Can you tell us what inspired the blog posts that I read about four-hand repertoire?
Thank you. This is a good topic. I'm glad you like this post. This post comes from a teacher meeting I organize every 3 months in my studio. We have organized. This was the fourth edition of these meetings. As I mentioned before, I have learned a lot from teachers around the world by following them on the internet. And the importance of sharing what you know and listening to what other teachers know is vital to growing as a teacher. So I decided to hold these meetings at my studio, to which teachers come not only from Madrid, but from different cities in Spain, so that we can all share our ideas on different topics. For example, there have been meetings on repertoire for teaching by rote, and we talk about their benefits. And we did the second meeting about Forest Guinness and the Forest Guinness books and the 4 arts. Another meeting in which we explored the piano repertoire for elementary and intermediate levels. And this one you mentioned, exploring the 4 or more hands repertoire. And this meeting was so fun because we all played the repertoire that we proposed. We were about 20 piano teachers, and we played with each other, and we had a great time. So we could try and hear what all the proposed pieces sounded like. So we are creating a community of very, very nice teachers with many things to share, who in addition to having a great time, we learn a lot from each other. In the next meeting, we will going to explore the different piano methods that exist today, which ones there are, what they have in common, what are their differences. So my idea is to write a post about every teacher meeting we have. That's how I wrote this post about 4-hand repertoire.
I love this idea because as piano teachers, a lot of times we're so isolated. It's just us and our students coming in and out, right? And we need that community with other teachers. So I love that. I have a couple piano teacher friends here in California, and we've actually been talking about this idea of trying to get more piano teachers together in person just to support each other and share ideas and all of that. So I think that's really exciting that you're doing that, and to have 20 teachers, that's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about the 4-hand repertoire meetup that you did. What a great idea to have all of you come and play the 4-hand or 6-hand, whatever, repertoire together. What do you think are some of the benefits of having students learn repertoire like this, ensemble repertoire?
Yes, I think playing pieces for 4 or more hands, it has a great benefits for students. When students play together, they learn to keep a steady pulse and a musical flow without pausing for mistakes or challenges. This helps them to focus more on flowing than to focus on mistakes they made. So it's very good for flowing with the music. So learning to keep going is essential in music. Keep going. That's so important, and it's very important for them to play together, because when they play by themselves, they can stop whenever they want. But when they play with other students or other friends, they have to keep going, and it's so important. And in an ensemble, small errors blend in, and keeping the music flowing is more important that play the notes perfectly. That the most important thing is to keep going and to play together. And the perfection is not, it's important, but it's not that important. This also helps them develop a more relaxed attitude, understanding that mistakes are a part of this musical journey. So this also helps to develop a better sense of rhythm in the students, because they are playing always in pulse, and they have to keep playing. And because they have to play with other classmates or friends, or they have to work on active listening. So the students learn to play with others, and they have to pay attention not just to their own playing, but also their friends or classmates or partners what they are playing. So they have to adjust dynamics, tempos, at good balance between the sound of the 2 or 3 or more parts. So this is very important also, this aspect of playing together, a collaboration between students. This as you mentioned before, being a piano teacher sometimes is a lonely activity. So sometimes also to play in a piano for the students also is a lonely activity because they are on their own playing at their homes. So it really helps them to make music together with other partners. So playing with friends is very motivating for students, and they learn to take also responsibility for preparing their part, that it's a part in a whole with other parts, and they have to study their parts to help all the group, to not only for themselves but for the group. So to play together, so to play with 2 or more students at the same time also helps the student help with the stage fright or performance anxiety, because it's not the same playing on your own, you alone with your instrument, than playing with others. This playing with others takes some of the pressure off, so making the students feel more relaxed, and sharing the performance helps them to be more at ease and get more comfortable with playing their pieces in front of an audience. So it's a good practice for students to reduce this performance anxiety, to start playing. Also, I really like to play in a recital, always before they play their solo pieces. They can play first some four hands first, because this way they are going to be more relaxed. Yes, and they can play their solo pieces. Or sometimes I also encourage them to improvise in groups, in duets. So this way, when they have to play by themselves alone, and they are going to be more confident and more relaxed. I think this really help students to be more relaxed and playing in public. So also teaching four hand pieces, sorry, is also great for reading skills, because it helps the student improve, as we mentioned before, to keeping the music flowing. So they have to read with non-stopping. They have to play to continue, keep going, keep playing. And also they learn to stay aware of both their parts and their partner's parts. And also it's very good thing about playing this repertoire is that they can explore the whole keyboard. So students get to cover the entire keyboard, from the lowest area of the piano to the highest notes. So this lets them explore new sounds and become more comfortable with registers they might not use very often when they play solo. So they have to read also into most of the four-hand pieces. They have to read or into two treble clefs or into bass clefs. So this is a good thing also for the students to learn. And also, this playing in groups or in four hands brings us the possibility to mix students of different levels or ages to play together, and this is a good thing. I think they can be of different levels and different ages, and also the pieces, the forehand pieces, can be more fun pieces and more dynamic pieces and more exciting. And sometimes this four-hand repertoire sound, because they are two people playing together or three, the pieces can sound more difficult than they really are most of the time. So this is very motivating for them, because they are playing and the pieces are sound as they were much more difficult than they are. Because all of these things I have mentioned before, playing for hand pieces increases the student motivation, and also it helps to create a community between your students, because they are going to know each other much better, because they are going to play together, and you can build a more connected community of students with the teacher. So I encourage all teachers to use plenty of four-hand pieces and organize group activities.
Yeah, thank you for going through all those benefits. Some of them I hadn't even thought about, but it's so true. There's just a ton of benefits. When you were talking about the learning to listen to your partner, or having to listen to your partner, I was thinking about, we have two little girls in the conservatory where I work, and they do a buddy lesson. So they've been playing together for quite a while now. And I remember when they first started playing at recitals together, they would always get off. Like one of them would be at a different place than the other one. And then it was interesting to see the progression. After a couple of recitals, they could find each other. If one of them got off, the other one would know exactly how to listen and find the other one. So it's interesting to see how they've grown by playing together. In the blog post, you listed some of the pieces that you guys did at your meetup. And then you had little video links. So I was able to check out some of the repertoire. And one of my favorites was the four-handed keyboard crocodile. I loved that one. Thought it was really fun with the body percussion and everything. Were there any that you found as favorites, or that maybe you've gone back to time and time again with your students?
Yes, I also love that book you mentioned, the Four-Handed Keyboard Crocodile. It's a very good book for hand. It's amazing. At this meeting, I knew some of the books that people proposed, but there were a lot of new ones. That one of the books we mentioned and we played was one I already know. We were lucky because we have in this meeting two composers. And one of them was Giulio Pietropaolo, an Italian composer that lives in Madrid, who has just released 3 four-hand piano books that I love. Melodic Explorations, also published by Piano Safari. These are three books with amazing pieces on them. We were able to play with the composer. We were able to play with him several of his pieces, and this, I love these pieces are written. They are pieces because the secondo part is a little hard, so it's for a teacher or a very advanced student, and a student for elementary or early intermediate level. These pieces are very fresh and very modern. Students love them, and also teachers. And it's a good thing, because you have to, some of the pieces for the teachers, you have to study and to practice before playing with the students, because they are very, very rich and with a lot of harmonies, very, very nice. And you have to study before playing. Well, some of them you can sight read them, but some of them you better study them first. Another series that I didn't know before this meeting, I knew these books in this meeting, was the series. I don't remember. I think are 4 or 5 books. I don't remember, of Crossing Borders by another Italian composer, Remo Vinciguerra. And these pieces, I started using them after this meeting. The bad thing about these meetings is after these meetings I have to buy a lot of books. So it's very expensive for me to to do these meetings. So I bought some of the Crossing Borders by Remo Vinciguerra books. And they are written, these pieces, in very different musical styles, and they are for a student and a student. So they are similar levels pieces. And also, I think this is very well known, but Christopher Norton's micro jazz duet collections and Vandal's celebrated piano duets series this series is great. And the celebrated Christmas duets. So works very well with my students because have a very original arrangements, the ones by Robert Vandals. To the meeting came also a Spanish composer, Natalia Jareño, that brought us her book, Christmas Songs for hand, also for a student and a student, and we played with her all these arrangements of traditional carols, and they are great also. And for 6 hands, we also play Mike Cornick's 4 pieces. The book I think is 4 pieces for 6 hands at 1 piano, and he has also another, I don't remember the title, but something Caribbean for 6 hands or something like this. I don't know the title. And also for 3 people, for 6 hands, are the Jazz for 3 by Robert Vandal. It contains, I think, two pieces, and they are the 2 pieces are really great. Another book we played in this meeting was Chopsticks Infinity by Philip Johnston. Did you know that one?
Yeah, I saw it on the blog. Yeah, that was a good one.
Okay, yes, because it explores more than 100 ways to play the song Chopsticks, the piece, and with very different, amazing variations, and with a lot of possibilities to create different groups of students, and also mixing students of an elementary level with a more advanced students, and you can create a lot of combinations with 2, 3, 4, 5 students. It's a very good book. It's a very fun book to explore.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all those. Those are great. I have this problem with the podcast too, as it can be very expensive because I want to go buy everything that my guests talk about. So I understand your dilemma. We're going to pivot now because I do want to give you a chance to talk about the piano harmony course that you've created. And I've also created an online course, so I can only imagine how much time you put into this. I looked through the course a little bit, and there's so much great content in there, and you playing and videos and all of this. So can you just tell us a little about the course and who you created it for?
This was a long and hard process, as you already know, to publish this course, Piano Patterns in Harmony. This course is designed to learn improvisation and harmony simultaneously for the people taking the course. The music is made up of patterns. There are harmonic patterns, chord progressions patterns, rhythmic patterns, melodic patterns, and accompaniment patterns. And in this course, students will learn to create music using patterns from different composers, such as Bach, Diabelli, Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, or even more contemporary composers such as Philip Glass or Ludovico Einaudi, combining these patterns by these composers in various ways to improvise or compose your own ideas with this from these composers. For example, I'm going to play a little example. For example, I'm going to play these 4 chords: A minor, and F major, and then C major, and E major. And we can, with only these 4 chords, we can play in very different ways. We can play only A minor, F, C, and E. We can play, for example, we can play ascending arpeggios. We can play the same arpeggios, but in contrary motion. We can, with the same chords and the same these 4 chords, we can apply a pattern, a figuration from other composers. For example, I'm going to use the figuration of Bach's Prelude Number 1, but I'm going to apply this figuration that all everybody knows. I think this prelude. I'm going to use this figuration and I'm going to play these 4 chords I have mentioned before, but with Bach's figuration. Or we can apply the pattern you want to apply to this 4 chord progression. For example, one from Bertini's Etude in F sharp minor, but we can play the same figuration that Bertini used in this etude, but with these 4 chords. Or we can play left hand with an Alberti bass with these 4 chords and create a melody only using chord tones. Or this is just an example that you can play these 4 chords in hundreds and thousands of different ways, and you can explore and combine the same chord progressions with figuration and ideas from composers from very different styles. And you can, by adding neighbor notes or apoyaturas or just playing with the chord tones in different ways and different rhythms, you can create very varied music. And only use a simple chord progression like this, or you can use the figuration of Bach or whatever figuration you want. But for example, the Bach Prelude Number 1 figuration, and you only by adding these embellishing tones and change meter or changing the key from major to minor, or applying this figuration to other chord progressions, and you can play these ideas and mix them in an infinity ways of different ways to explore with all these patterns. So in this online course, I will sequentially introduce the different scale degrees to understand harmony in an easy and musical way. First, I introduce the 2 most famous or 2 most common chords in Western music, the 1 and 5 chords, tonic and dominant. And then I introduce the 4th degree, 1, 4, 5 chord progression. Only with these 3 chords, you can create amazing music. Or then I introduce the 2nd degree. Then gradually I introduce all the diatonic chords in a key. So I finish the only chords that aren't diatonic are secondary dominants. That is, I introduced secondary dominants also in the course, because with secondary dominants you can create a lot of music. So I thought that it was important to talk about secondary dominants, even if it's a difficult concept, but I wanted to have one unit dedicated to secondary dominants. With every activity in the course, we create music using these elements, chords, scales. I use only major and minor, three types of minor scales, and with embellishing tones, and as I did before. So I have spent many years trying to help my students to improvise and to improve their improvisation skills and their composition skills. And also I wanted my students to improve their knowledge about harmony. So I wanted my students to learn to improvise and to learn harmony. And there were on the internet a lot of courses and a lot of videos on YouTube about improvisation, but most of them are focused on jazz and modern music, like that are perfectly okay. But I wanted to also to have more material in classical style music, and the ones that there are, because there are courses and books and videos about classical music improvisation, but most of these courses or videos are very, very difficult for the students. So these courses are designed normally for very advanced pianists with a very high piano technique. So I wanted to work with my students for intermediate levels. I want to improvise. I started using, as I mentioned before, the patterns of Forest-Skinny. I am a big fan of Forest-Skinny. I started using these improvisation ideas. I learned from the ideas I learned from Forest-Skinny's patterns with my students. So I started to apply these patterns and these progressions Forest-Skinny suggested in their improvisation. I started to use these patterns and mix them with the repertoire my students were playing. So I started to mix Forest-Skinny ideas with the patterns we found in our pieces from Diabelli or Clementi or whatever. And the students were incredibly motivated by doing this. And it not only helped them understand harmony and develop their creativity, but also helped them learn their repertoire pieces better and more quickly. So we improvise, and this also helped students to learn their repertoire more quickly, because they understand what they are doing, and they can create new music from a previous. So after several years of doing this work with my students and also teaching this approach to piano teachers in various workshops I give at conservatories in Spain, I decided to put all this information together and create this course. And I see this course, I think that fills the gap between Forest-Skinny's work and the historical improvisation or partimento courses and books like those by John Mortensen, which are absolutely wonderful. But I think that there were a gap between these two tremendous works. So this course is a way to bridge the freer improvisation of Forest-Skinny with historical improvisation. So I hope I have succeeded in filling that gap. So if you or your students, or both, or you and your students want to learn improvisation, my recommendation is start with Create First or Pattern Play by Forest-Skinny. Then continue with Piano Patterns in Harmony, my online course. And then if you or your student are interested in develop this improvisation, this historical improvisation, I highly recommend courses and books by John Mortensen that are great.
Yeah, great. So, yeah, I think that it would be great for teachers and students to go through the course together. I think that all of us could really learn from it. It's not for one group or the other. It's so systematic that it's a very clear progression, I think, inside the course. Talk a little bit about the transformation that you've seen in your own students as they've gone through the course. You mentioned that it helps them learn their repertoire. Have you seen other results as they've gone through the course?
Yes, when they as I mentioned before, this knowledge about harmony and improvisation helps them a lot to understand the music they are playing, because they are capable of playing and improvising new music from music that they can read in his scores. So they can learn much more quickly. They have a lot of fun, because they improvise with every pattern they found on the repertoire they are playing. They can improvise with them. You can also teach whatever theoretical idea you want to or a rhythmic idea or a melodic idea you want to work with your students. If you improvise with them, they are going to understand all these ideas much better. So it's not only for improvisation, for learning improvisation, but it's also for learning harmony. You can use it for teaching whatever concept you want, whatever element in music you want to work with your students, and little by little the students are going to build a harmonic vocabulary and a pattern vocabulary. So they are going to be capable to improvise and to create their own music. First, we are going to guide our students with these guidelines I suggest in the course, but little by little they are going to create their own music, and they are going to learn how to compose also. So we are going to doing this course or some other using some other resources about improvisation. We can work in a more holistic teaching with our students. We can develop their ear training and their theory concepts, and you can work on a lot of things all in one using improvisation.
Yeah, thank you for sharing about the course with us. I encourage listeners to check out the course, your blog, which has a lot of information on it, and any other resources that you want to tell us about. Tell us where listeners can find all of your information.
People who want to contact me to ask me anything can do so writing to my email. Is it's info at megustalpiano.com, so info, and my blog. If you want to more about my pieces, you can do so on the pianosafari.com page. My 4 books are there. And if you want to explore my website, megustalpiano.com, you can find resources for ideas for piano lessons, both in English and Spanish. If there are some Spanish teacher listening to this, you can visit megustalpiano.com. And in the same web, in my blog, you can find more information about my course, Piano Patterns in Harmony, if you want to know more about it. So, and if you want to read a review of this course that describes it in depth, you can go to pianocreativity.com. I also recommend this page because his creator, Gareth Brooke, it's amazing. He has in this website many resources to introduce creativity into your lessons. So it's a really good website. And also I have a YouTube channel with the same name as my blog. Me Gusta el Piano, that is my channel. And also I want to mention that I'm going to be in Chicago for the first time for the NCKP. I haven't been there. So I am excited to be there. So if you are going to if you are listening to this episode and want to meet me, please say hello to me. Are you going to Chicago, Rachel?
I am. I'm so excited. Yes, I went 2 years ago for the first time and it was amazing. So I can't wait to go again.
So we can meet each other there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. We'll be sure to get all of the links into the show notes so listeners can find them. And I appreciate so much you staying up late there in Spain to chat with me today. And thank you for sharing all this wealth of information with our listeners.
Thank you very much, Rachel. It has been a pleasure.
That's the end of the show for this week. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Juan, and I do encourage you to check out the resources that he has available to piano teachers. I'm Rachel Ehring, and you've been listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. I will talk with you again very soon.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today.